Reggie.
T.
Here we are again, two men and a stool.
Two men and a stool.
We often get picked at about this stool a lot of times because people hadn't really grasped what it all means. So just real quick, break it down. This stool can't stand with just two legs. In order for this stool to be able to stand, all three of the legs got to be strong.
That's right.
And the work that we do around the country saying that to support this foundation, you got to have this leg called the culture and the climate. That means what's going on in the school.
That's right.
Does that school feel good, look good, smell good? It's somewhere you want to be.
That's
that
right.
first leg got to be strong. Then you got to have that parent at home. You got to send me a student worth working with.
Right.
Do the least that you can possibly do. I know
right.
the least is the most in some cases, but we say get that parent to do what they need to do.
That's right.
At that threshold.
That's right.
And then last but not least, our most valuable resource, that student.
Right.
And we like to say we got to first get them turned on to living so we can get them turned on to learning.
Right.
So when we get that kid to say, this is what I want to do in life, this is what I want to have in life, this is what I want to be in life. And that's why it's so important that today we have who we have with us. And I'm gonna let you take the opportunity.
Well, I mean, I'm excited, and we want to focus on one of the legs today, the student. And our guest today, that's the space that you all are in. And I want to first of all say, Miss Gwendolyn Garnett. Thank you. One, for having us here all the time at your conference, that's a plus, but also the work that you all are doing. So if you would, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, obviously, and the background, the vision of Home Free USA, and of course Center for Financial Investment, because we get questions like, how the two connected? And rather than us talking as a third party, we want to come to the source. And so if you would, again, thank you so very much for being here.
Well, I must thank you, both of you, for being here. And this is your second year coming back. The students love you, and you have a lot of wisdom that our students need to hear. Home Free USA, let me start. Let's back up, talk about Gwen for a second.
Please.
I am a retired banker, 24 and a half years at Bank of America. My 24 and a half years there, 14 different roles. I only applied for the first one. They kept tapping me on the shoulder to do all kinds of stuff. And so I built some businesses while in the bank, led some technology. I'm a COBOL programmer who happens to talk, so I'm a techie,
Okay.
back in the day. But anyway, I built multiple things at the bank. My last tour of duty, as I call it, I created the bank's multicultural mortgage lending practice. In that practice, my role was to figure out how the bank could get loans from people of color. And the person who asked me to take the role didn't know how. He said, first I said, if it's about sponsoring chicken dinners, I'm not interested. And he didn't know what I meant. And I said, it's not a check presentation, that kind of thing is done. He says, no, we need to build a strategy and know how to go after the business and bring in more people of color for mortgage bottom line. My role was twofold. Externally was to find the partners that has the relationships, Hispanic, Black, Asian, and Native American, all the different groups. My other part of my job was changing internal policy. I met Home Free USA, which is who we're talking about today, in that role because I brought them into the bank to bring me mortgage-ready business. Home Free prepares people for home ownership. Back then, it was focused on Black folks, helping Black people learn how to become homeowners and then introducing them to lenders who could do a mortgage. I was one of their many lenders.
Okay.
So I got wonderful production, from Home Free during that time.
Okay.
To the bottom line, with people of color. And I stayed on Marcia and Jim's boards, 30-year-old African-American company based in Landover, Maryland. Home Free is. Just celebrated 30 years this year.
Awesome.
I stayed on that board when I retired, and she wanted me to, 7 years ago, start a program introducing students at HBCUs to the real estate finance and mortgage industry. That is a 55-plus-year-old white male industry.
Say
where
that again.
people make a
Say
lot
that
of
again. That's
55-plus-year-old white male industry.
Okay.
And during my last tenure on the executive team, it was me, the only female, and the only person of color. But that's normal for the industry because typically, and that's a commission-based industry. And our kids don't have, and families don't have the relationships to go out and get the person with the jumbo loan and make that commission. It goes on and on. So anyway, we started this program to introduce our students to the industry, but to introduce the industry to HBCUs. Back in 2017, Marcia was in an industry meeting, and I won't say which one, but somebody said that because the industry's aging out, let's go find diverse candidates. Let's focus on Latinas and Asians because Black people were not interested in home ownership. This is December 2017.
Wow.
Marcia being who she is, and she's a very outspoken, innovative, non-apologetic, who she is, driven by her cause and our cause and mission, said, well, what do you mean? They said, when we go to schools, the students don't talk to us. She said, well, have you been to an HBCU? The next comment was, what's an HBCU?
Uh-uh.
So Marcia comes out of the meeting, calls me, and says, Gwen, can you help me create something to introduce our kids to the industry and vice versa? That was the real start of the Center for Financial Advancement.
Okay.
And so what the program is, it's a program to work with students, first of all, to build a solid financial foundation. We want them to understand budgeting and savings and credit. Those three things, if you get those right, you can accomplish anything. And you know that because you can because you can make all the money in the world, but it's how much you keep that counts, not how much you make, right?
Yes.
And so budgeting and savings, credit, become a homeowner early. Don't spend your life paying somebody else's mortgage. Because a lot of our community, Black African Americans, has the lowest homeownership rate, has always had it.
Teach.
And it's the highest has been 48%. We're down to like 42%.
Teach.
And so we're focused on helping them realize they can become homeowners sooner than later. It's okay to rent. Everybody can't start out being a homeowner, but have the mindset to get prepared to get there. And then also helping them to build their professional skills, their leadership skills, and introducing them to the industry, providing access, because a lot of our kids don't have access, to internships and job opportunities in these different companies. So that's a long answer to your question.
No,
That's okay.
that's exactly. You talked about insurance. You talked about opportunities, and we like to say there's no hope without opportunity. And when we participated in the CFA, the Money for Life conferences, I want to just digress just a little bit. And you talked about the student part. How are you building those relationships, and what are you doing or telling the institutions? Because the higher learning, whatever you're majoring in, they're focusing on those areas. But here you all are talking about budget, finance, saving, home ownership to young people in college. So how does that process work?
And the relationship with whom? With the school or with the student? Who are you talking
Well,
about?
with both, really. Obviously, I assume you start at the school first, and then to get the students. Yes.
The relationship is one where we start with at the president, at the very top, to have them see the value in what we bring. Because you can be a doctor, but if you don't know how to manage your money, you're over leveraged, you're poor, your credit's jacked up. So we have them really understand the value of what we're bringing. We don't want the school to have to spend any additional dollars. So because of our funders, we're able to provide money to the school directly to cover any cost of our program. A lot of people will show up at our HBCUs with this great idea, great program, and no money.
No money.
And that happens a lot.
Why is that so important? Because we know we've been in the college.
It's
area
so
before
important because our school, HBCUs are already strapped financially.
That's it.
We
Okay.
don't get the resources that the PWIs do. We don't.
Okay.
That's a big gap that's going to take centuries to close. No, I'm more hopeful than that. It won't take centuries, maybe decades to close.
And I think you need to say that again about the money and the resources that you all provide.
We provide resources to cover the costs of the program and to supplement a liaison. We have an on-campus liaison at each of the schools. Typically, it's somebody in career services. Sometimes it's a professor. We got some of both here because they get excited and see what we're doing. But those individuals have many more students other than our students to work with. So we provide a small liaison, a stipend for the liaisons, funding directly to the school to cover the costs of the program. And then the students, we created a learn to earn model. In corporate America, you're used to incentive plans, right? You get it. So I'm like, okay, let's create a carrot for the students. So the more you learn, the more you can earn. So this conference that you're here attending, the Money for Life Leadership Summit, is the kickoff of a 2-day immersive training, in-person training, that our partners, our funders participate in delivering the training, individuals like you and others. But they get points for attending.
They get points or we get points?
The students get points. The students get points for not just attending, but engaging. But then after they leave, we have a learning management system where they continue online learning. And the beauty of that is the curriculum that we have that our partners contribute to, we write some of it. They can be online at 3 o'clock in the morning doing something while we're asleep, because we got to meet students where they are.
That's right.
So they're learning throughout the school year, go home for the holidays, maybe have an internship over the holidays, come back. We have 4 regional events that we pull them together, 4 hours in and out in 4 different regions, and then back to the online system. And then at the end of the year, we're ready for internships and jobs. So that's why the relationship at the school level is important. But then for the student, is understanding what's important. A lot of these students want to be entrepreneurs like you, right? But even as entrepreneurs, you got to know how to do what? budget,
That's right.
save, credit.
That's right.
So we understand what their interest is. 20 students are selected from each school. They apply on campus. The liaison picks them. We're not involved in that. And those students become part of the new cohort each year.
Okay.
We have returning students. We have students that have been in the program for 3 or 4 years. They could come in as a freshman, sophomore, junior, or a senior. They can be, we don't care about major and we don't care about grade point. Some companies that are hiring care about, they want a 3.0. Some companies could care less. One of our major funders, Rocket, the biggest mortgage company in the industry, don't care about grade point. Most people in the mortgage industry, because that's not a grade point kind of industry. But anyway, back to the students. So they see that we're investing in them to learn, but we make them accountable too. So we're doing that coaching and developing and providing resources along the way for them. So everybody's getting something financially because we recognize time is money and it takes time, and we want them to have something. And the other thing about the stipend, last thing I'll say, the students often you'll find are working 2 and 3 part-time jobs. That stipend gives them some money in their pocket, maybe to cut one of those part-time jobs as well.
You know, when I see it and I listen to you, and I know we've had a conversation, and you and I and Reggie had lunch a few months ago, and you told us that you retired. And I'm from the South, so I went to church in the South, and that was this song they used to sing, whether they sung it at Flipper Temple AME or whether they sung it at First Missionary Baptist Church in
what's
Dothan,
that?
Alabama. The harvest is plentiful,
But the laborers are few.
but the laborers
That's
are
right.
few. You being one of the laborers that have retired, left a real good career, and was doing pretty good when you left.
Yep.
Marcia called you,
Yep.
and you came.
Exactly.
Tell us why.
When I retired from corporate, my prayer was for God to use me to help others be successful. That has manifested itself in so many ways. Be careful what you ask for, because I've done other things unrelated to this. I'm like, okay, Lord, why am I doing this? It's because you asked for it. But in this case, I gained so many skills and experiences and knowledge and access in my career. And the funny thing about me, guys, I have an associate degree in computer science. That's it. But I was a senior executive at the company because, again, of access and applying myself and being a sponge and learning and not being afraid to try something I'd never done before. So I was one of the top executives at the company for quite a long time. So when you look at that, what God has given, allowed me to give access to, I've got to pour it back into these. And what better group than to pour it back into these students?
That's right.
To help them, and they keep me young.
Right. But you know, Gwen, when you talk about the students at HBCUs, you're talking about our community, kids that look like us. And so many times, some of them are first-time college-going students. But when you talk about going to your parents in your home, if your parents have never owned a home, your parents are not college grads, and they don't, and they're just barely making it on a month, but now we're changing generations, and you're teaching generations around money and finance and saving and owning a home. I'm just thinking about the students, and off camera, we talked about some of the successes. I just want to give you an opportunity to talk about why this work is so impactful in some of the environments. Because we like to say, data informed, stories inspire. You all have some tremendous stories.
Let's talk about the parents first. One of our students, O'Shayla Peoples, graduated from North Carolina Central 2, maybe 3 years ago. She now works for Cisco. Her mom had rented for over 20-something years, 25 years plus. And because of being in our program, O'Shayla learned the process of home ownership. She said, Mom, let's get you involved with Home Free to help guide you to home ownership. And I think 3 Christmases ago, Mom moved into her first house after renting for 20-something years.
Wow.
And then O'Shayla's mission became, I want to get my auntie, my cousin, them, my neighbors, I want to get everybody involved. So, I mean, that's one story. Nicholas Whiteside, who's my student director, he's the first young man we met at Fisk. And we started at Fisk because Marcia is a Fisk alum. So we started there. But Nick graduated in May 4 years ago and bought his house at July with an over 800 credit score, guys. And then just 2 days ago, Debelachukwu Okolo, who is one of our students, she just graduated in May. Morgan Stanley hired her, moved her to Atlanta. She just closed on a townhouse 2 days ago.
And you were celebrating.
Of
you walked in,
course.
2 people.
Yes.
You said 2 people just
and
bought.
there are others. There are others that have bought homes already. And keep in mind, we're in a market we just came out of a market and kind of still, well, you got to compete to get one, first of all.
Right.
And you got to have down payment money and all that kind of stuff. And for first-time home buyers, there's so many resources out there, but that's what we teach our students. So at least we're planting the seed.
That's right.
All of them have not and will not become immediate homeowners, but at least now they begin to think instead of, paying somebody else's mortgage for a long, long time. And others are in the process of getting prepared. They're going through the home buying process. So when they can flip that, and we're teaching them, you don't have to buy that big mansion, get something to start with, but also use that home as an investment. We had young people tell us credit was evil. They associated that with bill collectors calling their house and harassing their folks to pay a bill. So they were taught never to get credit. So we've actually had to work with mindset too, because you got to start there first.
That's right.
So changing mindset about credit, changing mindset about you don't have to live in a house for 30 years. That's why a young person don't want to buy one because they don't want to stay someplace for 30 years. Use that house as an investment. And now these students have a mindset, let me get that first small property and then use that as an investment, build some equity, then to buy the next one and then rent that one out.
Well, Gwen, you know we can talk.
Yeah, me too. You can see I'm passionate about this stuff.
Oh, very passionate. We hear how your voice changes and how you get excited about the whole concept of what you're doing. But I think, first of all, we want to say thank you for coming.
Well, thank you.
Because you've also helped us keep to our promise that we made to the audience when we said we would take to the airways. We're going to bring on positive people that are doing great things with young people to make sure that their lives can be better than we always were. That's what our parents always wanted for us. And we also are going to stay on the stool. We're going to stay on the stool. Like we said,
Yeah.
you just earned your own stool.
Yes.
Going through your process with your legs, and we think you well earned. I just want to say thank you. And your energy, what you give to the crowd when you're here, there's always the quiet storms that never get recognized.
That's right. That's
So
right.
we want to make sure that you're
thank
you're
you.
quiet around us. We don't know what
That's
you're
right.
doing.
We know you're running some things. That's right.
So thank you, and I'll let Reggie take us out.
Well, I think one of the things, one of our signature things we talk about is extra, read all about it. 5 years from now, and you can answer that as it relates to Gwen or as it relates to Home Free USA. What's the vision? I know if Marcia was here, the founder, she talked to us about it, but 5 years from now, where do you see this organization? What's the vision, direction? Where are you going 5 years from now?
5 years now for Home Free, it's continuing to expand homeownership. We can never lose track of that, of the importance of that. So with our last breath, that's what Home Free will be doing. But Home Free has multiple lines of business. But home ownership is a foundation for a lot of things. So that's one, to continue to grow. We've been here 30 years already, 30 more, 60 more. And what's beautiful, not 10 of our alumni, of CFA alumni, are full-time Home Free employees.
Wow.
So we recognize you got to bring in that talent to grow for that next 30 years. So that's Home Free. And for Gwen and for CFA, how old am I? I'm 66. I have no desire to sit at home and do nothing. So I'm using my talents and my gifts and my prayers that the Lord continues to let me do this work to see. Our goal is all HBCUs. But but we can only do so many at a time, and we only go where we're, what did I say, celebrated, not tolerated. So some schools may not be ready now because of just changes they might be going through, or some schools may have a program that they feel does what it needs to do, and that's okay. But our goal is all of them.
So,
but not in 5 years. It's going to take money and time. Yeah,
that's right. So, are there any other, to our listening audience around the country, is there anything else you'd like to share about the work? Anything else you want to share before we close out?
The last thing I would say, I have a wonderful team of 3 full-time people, and then some folks in Home Free, of course, that part-time, like accounting and marketing, that help. But one of the things, my joy is building talent and recognizing talent. The 3 people on my team, Nicholas, student director, Chardonnay, my program project analyst, and LaWanna Williams, my university director, are all alumni products of the program. They all came through CFA. So having the 2 young people under 30, who better yet to relate to the population, but they are driven young people. And then LaWanna, with her having all of her years in education, who better understands the HBCU world, because she's worked with one for a long time in education overall, and then with all of her other skill sets. So I have a very talented team. My background is corporate. My strength is coaching and developing people, but I've never worked in an academic environment. But putting together a team That's the last thing I would say. No matter what you're doing or what it is, you've got to have a good team, but you also have to recognize the team, because it's not about Gwen. It's about the collective group and then the rest of the Home Free team beyond the four of us that help make this all work.
You know, I just want to say again, Tony just said thank you, but to the founders, to the organization for having that forward thought process.
Let's make sure we say Marcia's whole name.
Marcia Griffin. Marcia and Jim Griffin, the founders of Home Free USA.
Great.
Yeah, they're on their way. They're just not here yet, but yeah, founders of Home Free USA.
I just want to say, you know, just you're all unabashful about talking about money. And we know in a capitalist world, a capitalist society, the more knowledge you have, and talking financial literacy, and I just want to say thank you. On behalf of Tony and I, our brand, our image, Two Men in a Stool.
Who are you?
Pardon me?
Say your name.
Well, you want to let me introduce this? Gwen got other things she needs to do.
I'm sorry.
I just want to say again, thank you all so very much to our listening audience, Two Men in a Stool. We always tell you that we want to be entertainers. We don't want to just entertain, we want to bring guests, and our guest today has been tremendous, and we want to keep saying thank you, thank you, thank you. This work is so important, especially when we're talking about young people. So on behalf of Reggie, Tony, Two Men in a Stool, I just want to say thank you all so very much for listening. Continue to listen to our podcast. We want to continue bringing on Gwen. I like to say people like Gwen and others that are doing this work, that we want to get this word out about the great work that's going on around the country. Thank you.